Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're checking in on the 30-Minute Sisters line here. With this one, the name is a bit of a tongue twister here, Eliene-Elierica. Yeah, I'm just it's easier to read in Japanese, I feel like, but there she is. Looks very cool with this sort of like angel wing kind of aesthetic to it, but a really nice design once again here for this one. I'm looking forward to checking this out, so let's go ahead and get into it for today's video. The beautiful box art here on the front from Humikane Shimada-san, featuring Eliene here with, like I said, those wing parts. You can see she's got like kind of wing parts up on the head, as well as this, I guess it's like a bow, isn't it? Yeah, or it can make a bow with this sort of heart-shaped arrow that she's got there as well. So very light color scheme as well there to match a light colored hair. And then the skin tone color for this one, let's see. Anyway, this is the Elegant form and number 12 in the line. What we're taking a look at here on the side of the box. I believe this is skin tone color B, but it should say somewhere around on here. We'll find it eventually. Here on this side of the box shows our face options that we have here. Looks like we're going to have 3 pre-printed or tempo printed faces included, so that's very nice. A bit more kind of detailed images of that, showing our hand option parts and the different forms, the normal mode or the normal form and the elegant form there as well, with all that stuff added on there. Are those parts going to be like pearlescent? It looks like they might be, which will be interesting. Here we got some action poses over here. It looks like an action base is going to be included, so very nice. Going around here onto the other side of the box, we got a little bit about customizing this, where of course you can mix and match parts with different 30 Minutes Mission, 30 Minute Sisters, 30 Minutes Fantasy, and more. You can customize to your heart's content, as that's sort of the name of the game with these kits, of course. Let's go ahead and check out our instruction manual. And yes, those parts are in pearlescent and have like an iridescent shine to them, actually. So that's pretty cool. We'll come back to the runners in just a moment, but first, a little bit more here about the instruction manual. I love that they print some credits on there along with the illustration. Very cool. And then down here you can see more about the sister, basically the same type of stuff we saw on the outside of the box. On the back side here, once again, just talking about how you can customize this by mixing and matching parts there. Pretty cool mix up with the Neverlia. That looks pretty nice. Very interesting. And then here with the 30 Minutes Missions kind of mecha horse set there as well. Pretty interesting. We've got our little chibi version of the character art right here, which will appear a couple times throughout the manual, but down here just letting us know. This is actually really kind of interesting. There's a QR code to participate in a contest, and then here is about how to refold the box. And there's also like the manual all on here. I'm not really sure what this is for, what that's about. Well, that's certainly interesting. On the inside here, we've also got our parts list, and you can see there's those dotted lines to separate the runners, basically to separate them if you want to separate them for ease of construction. It doesn't really make it that much more easier, I guess, but it can sort of help to streamline the process. Here on the next page, once again, there's our chibi character letting us know that you can snap apart the runners, and then here's basically showing which sections go for which part of the construction. So like this part for the body, this part for the arms, the legs, and all the equipment and everything. So you can separate the runner sections out like this to, again, just kind of streamline your construction of the kit, basically. But here on the next page, once we get into the construction, it's letting us know we're building the head and body, and these are all the parts and runners and stuff that we're going to be using for this. So again, it's all very easy to follow, but there's the construction there in color. The next page is where it switches to black and white for the back side of the manual and for the rest of the construction there. Towards the end, we've got our chibi character letting us know you can swap out the face parts to suit the vibe, and then it's just showing how you can use some of these parts for customization. And then there's a number of parts that are going to be left over with this set that you can use just kind of as you want for different customizability options. And then pretty cool extra bit here, you get an actual little metal rod that I guess that's going to be for the arrow. So really nice to have that, just to make sure that it's not like a very thin, long plastic piece that could very easily break. It's an actual metal piece. Very cool. And then getting into the runners, we do have an included action base. This is the BA0 base here in clear. And then here, some of our pre-printed parts like the face parts. We got faces 1, 3 there with the open mouth, and the mouth part is printed as well. Face part 4 there, sort of winking face. And then this other runner here, face parts H5 for basically the neck and parts for inside the head there. The A runner is here in 3 colors. We got some blue parts, some off-white kind of cream colored parts over there, and some skin tone colored parts over here. Runner B is some more parts here in that off-white cream color there. Runner C, some more parts here in blue, basically for the rings on the wrists, upper arms, and thighs. Runner D, some more parts here in a lighter blue, there for around on the body. Runner E, some more off-white cream color parts there for some of the parts for the arms and legs. And then runner J1 is our first of the iridescent parts, and it's going to be kind of hard to tell as these are a lot of smaller parts on here, but it has this really cool iridescent shine to it. Probably a little bit easier to see here on runner FA. So you have a couple of blue parts down there at the bottom, but here on these wing parts, hopefully you guys can see that. We've seen Bandai using this sort of iridescent blended plastic for a lot of like clear effect parts on different things lately, but this is the first time I've seen it on some like kind of pearlescent white that has this iridescent pigment sort of injected there with the plastic. It looks very cool. Runner HPN is going to be our hair parts there in a very light blonde color. Lastly then, runners OJ1 and OJ2 being some option joint parts. That's what the OJ stands for. Option joint parts 1 is here in that iridescent white, and then OJ2 is here in that off-white cream color there. So that's it for the runners. Let's go ahead and get this built up and check it out. Alright guys, here she is all built up. Obviously a very familiar building process. If you built any of the 30 Minute Sisters kits, you should have a pretty good idea what to expect. But the nice thing about these later ones definitely is that they have those parts for the arms and legs that do not have seam lines on them, which is awesome. And just the overall construction, really nice, very simple for these, a lot of fun to put together. And obviously as you're seeing her now, this is just the base body before we're adding on any of the additional equipment. So we'll add that on here in just a second. We'll take a look at all of our different accessories and option parts, but even in just this base form, I think she looks really, really nice. Really nice color scheme here for this one with that kind of white and blue, light blue kind of color scheme. It really looks quite nice. This is another one where I kind of wouldn't feel too bad at all about not adding any of the additional weapons and equipment onto her at all, just kind of leaving her like this. But let's go ahead and check out the accessories. And so first off, we're going to have this included stand. It works pretty well. These stands are nice enough. Not quite as nice as some of the other ones that you can buy separately, but it's always nice to have something included. Then we've got a whole bunch of leftover parts here on the joint runners that you can use for customization either with this kit or with other kits, so it's always great to have those extras. Then as for some of the other leftover bits and what you can do with them if you choose, these two parts are to replace this one skin tone color part there in the center. If you want, you can replace those with these blue and white parts here like that. There's also a leftover part which gives you a different design for that crest bit there in the center, as well as a leftover part here for the top of the head, just a little kind of head decoration that you can use with that if you want it. But those are just all the leftover parts, and then there's a few more other bits in there as well, like connection parts like this here for the back to take your single peg and turn it into a 2-peg adapter there, or this basically peg extension part here which you can use. Then we've got our array of option connection parts here, like for the upper arm you can replace that blue ring with either of these options, one giving you a square peg, one giving you a round peg. This wrist connection peg here, in this case it's not really going to be useful because of the design of the forearms here. Usually this part would be used for around the wrist if you wanted to add a hard point on there. But then we do also have replacements for these blue rings here at the thigh. Once again, whether you wanted to have a round peg or a square peg, you can swap that part out. And as for our more useful accessories, obviously we've got different hand parts like the closed fists here. We've got these expressive kind of 3-finger open hands here like this. Another set of open expressive hands here for the left and the right side like so. These will especially come in handy for if you're wanting to do a pose like looking like she's firing her arrow weapon. This is a kind of like a arrow release looking hand there. And then we've got our 2 weapon holding hands here that have a square hole in the center for holding any kind of weapon that you might want. For our 3 pre-printed face options, here's the first 2. You got the open mouth face there, and then this kind of wincing face over here. The printing quality on these looks pretty nice. And then our third face option, just sort of like a kind of straight face. So you have some pretty decent expressions here, which should make for some pretty good posing options. But obviously amongst the other different kits and various face option part sets that you can get, you have lots of different parts available for you. And then as for her equipment, which is all molded in this pearlescent plastic here, which looks really nice. This part is going to attach into the top of the head there. You've got 2 of these little bits that are going to attach at the front of the thigh. If you remove this part right here on the front of the thigh, you've got a hard point there like that. And then similarly, there's one on the front of the shin as well under that cap. You've got this kind of like little angel wing part here, which just has a single peg and can be connected onto the back. Alternatively, you could connect this onto the lower back or really just kind of onto wherever you want. Where the manual will show you how to make it like the box art, but of course you can make it however you want. That goes for this piece here as well, which is used kind of as a weapon part, and then also, as you can see, we got the handle on there. This can also just be attached onto the back if you remove that handle part, or onto the back up there, or just again kind of wherever you want. You've got a couple of different hard points here on the underside of that part there. And then the main wing section here is made up of a couple of different sections with joints in between, so this is posable, and you do have a bit here at the end that can also rotate up and down, so these can be moved around kind of in every which direction, which makes them pretty versatile, and again can be connected anywhere you want, but according to the manual they're connected here onto the lower back, again if you wanted to make it like according to the instructions. So last but not least then is just going to be our arrow kind of weapon here, which it's great that it has that metal rod in there to ensure that that's not going to be broken. That said, I do think that it looks a little bit out of place where you don't have anything kind of like a dark metallic color anywhere on the kit except for the arrow itself, where everything else is in these like kind of light colors. You got a little bit of that kind of medium blue, but anyway, it just kind of contrasts very drastically, I think, with the rest of the color scheme and looks a bit odd. So it's not like they could have had like a white metal part there for that. Maybe aluminum might have been better. It wouldn't have been as solid, but I think it would have been nice to include a plastic option part in case you wanted to just use like just a white plastic rod. You know, it carries more of a risk of being broken, and so maybe include the parts to make a metal one as well, but it would have been nice to have an option of a plastic part for that, I think, just because if you're not planning on painting or anything, I think it just matches the color scheme a lot better. As for the rest of the kit, I mean, I mentioned that there's a couple of hard points on the front of the leg. You also have a couple of hard points here on the side of the arm and on the back, so lots of options for being able to plug stuff into here. You have hard points here on the back of the leg, and these square hard points in a couple of spots there on the back of the leg as well. Up underneath the feet, you've got your full detail there, but as you can see, it's still that like skull detail that is carried over from the Neverlia kit, if I remember correctly. That is what this body is based on, what this is basically a variant of anyway. And so as per usual with the line, I mean, you have really nice articulation here. You've got a hip joint that will drop down to allow you to bring the leg pretty far up to the front, double joint in the knee to get a full bend there, single joint in the elbow, but still gets a pretty full bend there. You have rotation at the thigh, rotation at the bicep right there, with the arm being plugged in at the shoulder via a ball joint and then having a hinge here as well. You've got 2 points for articulation kind of in the torso, one between the chest and the stomach, and then one between the stomach and the hip section. Less so for the latter, just a little bit of movement there, but the top joint there between the chest and the stomach section is going to be where you have the majority of your movement here in the torso. And overall, once again with this one, I think the color separation and the part design on this does look really nice. So let's go ahead and try it out here in some different poses. So here we have it, guys. What do you think about this one? There's basically kind of my thought on the 30-Minute Sisters releases is they kind of go into two categories. You have the one category where the kits are super basic in terms of what they come with and don't necessarily require you to get any other like option sets or anything like that, but really would benefit from having some option sets. And then there's other releases like this one that I would put this one into this category of other releases that kind of you feel like you're getting a full kit and you don't necessarily feel like, oh, I need to get something else kind of to go with that. It feels kind of complete as it is. You get a good amount of stuff in there, or at least it feels like you get more stuff compared to some of the lighter releases. There does seem to be a trend related to the kits that have like a form to them. Like this one has a named form, the Elegante form. The Alcacardi had the quartet form. The Farfarina had the conductor form. So these are all kind of in that category of kits that releases in the 30-Minute Sisters line that feel kind of more complete in terms of having more stuff in the box, more option parts and equipment parts that you can kind of play around with, compared to some of the other releases like Rochetta, Lelouch, Lironel, Laronel, some of these that just kind of don't quite have, not quite as much included, and those don't have like a named form in terms of like their titling on the box. So that does seem to be a kind of a distinction with these for me. That said, I mean, if you did want to customize this further or, you know, use these parts to kit bash with other kits, I mean, like that's kind of like the name of the game when it comes to 30-Minute Sisters. That's what it's all about, is, you know, kit bashing and customizing. And that's what I think makes these a lot of fun for people. But then again, you might just want to get this one just because you like the design just as it is. And if so, let me know. I'm just always interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are on some of these designs. This one, I gotta say, not really one of my favorite ones in the lineup, just because the color scheme is a little bit boring to me personally, but that's just kind of like my personal opinion. And I think overall the kit is a really nice kit. But for me, ultimately, this is probably going to be one that just becomes kit bashing material for doing some customization at some point. But Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. And if you want to check out the kit for yourself, check it out on usagundamstore.com, the website. Link is down in the video description below. We got all sorts of great 30 Minutes Sisters and other stuff from Bandai. All the 30 Minutes label stuff there, 30 Minutes Fantasy, 30 Minutes Missions, and the Armored Core 30 Minutes Mission stuff. All that good stuff is there on the website, so check that out. And as always, guys, thanks so much for all of your support. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're not subscribed yet, you can subscribe as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye, guys.